Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Infantry Pulse, and today we're going to be continuing the Skill Refinery Theorycraft series with the blue units. So we did the red units last time, we'll be continuing with the blue, going on to green and colorless in the coming weeks. Now these are the 4-star special units that we're going to be looking at. So these are units that are formerly 5-star locked, but we now have a way to get them in a kind of random regular roll. So I think these are units that deserve kind of a people talk about a re-refine a lot. I think this is a way to get around a re-refine and to use the refines they already have to their benefit. So without further ado, let's get into our first unit. So first up we have OG Ephraim. Now Ephraim has an interesting stat spread, kind of a good attack stat, pretty good defense, very good HP, but not really great speed or res to work with. Luckily though, his weapon, Sigmund, that he has, gives him an auto follow-up attack. So this is actually quite good for him because he has kind of the low, maybe workable if you really push it hard, but probably not speed stat. So this gives him a way to actually make that follow-up as long as he's very healthy, right? He has to maintain an above 90% HP threshold, which is kind of a lot, but as long as he can do it, that's actually a quite good effect for him. Now, what he needs to be a little bit better, though, would be something like the Reneus's Honor skill. So this turns him into kind of an infantry version of Ephraim. So Ephraim, we all know from 8th Raid's defense, is a quite scary unit and can be quite good. So Reneus's Honor gives him Spectrum +3 to attack, speed, defense, res. It also gives him the Dive Bomb effect, so he's able to follow up before the foe can counterattack. That's actually quite good for him, because then he's not going to take any damage, hopefully, and nuke down a unit. And if he doesn't take any damage, then he remains active with his 90% HP threshold he needs for Sigmund. It's also giving the Special Fighter effect, where it's granting him +1 special charge per his attack, and inflicting -1 special charge on the foe. Now, the inflicting -1 special charge is also an important part of this, because you are going to be attacking them twice before they can counterattack. There is a chance then that they are going to have their special charged up, and you don't want the special to retaliate against you, right? So this build, much like Ephraim's, lends itself to a Gale Force set. Now, with something like Odd Tempest, especially on a turn 1 trap, you see he's got a rally here. This is designed for a turn 1 rally trap. With Odd Tempest, he has the same movement as Ephraim and does the job arguably better. I think you definitely have something like a Legendary Sigurd that does that job even better now, obviously, because he has more movement and he has the movement granting special and all that kind of stuff. So obviously that's a better overall unit, but Legendary Sigurd is locked to win season. He's also behind the mythic legendary summons, so he's kind of hard to get. Ephraim, on the other hand, a lot of people probably have him, so this would make him a definite option. It's also good for color balance because he's blue when those units are red, so that's also really good for him. But definitely being a Gale Force unit on an 8th Raid's defense type setup would be a very good home for him. You could also do a similar build on 8th Raid's offense, but I think he's probably better in the defense setting for sure. But this would definitely take him from a completely outclassed and often forgotten unit to one that's actually a threat on 8th Raid's defense for sure. Next up, we have Delthea and Linde, and I'm covering them together because they share the same weapons. And I say weapons plural because Aura and Dark Aura can go back and forth, and they have very similar effects. So Aura and Dark Aura both have an effect where they grant +6 to adjacent allies. Aura gives that effect to magic and staff allies. Dark Aura gives that effect to melee allies. So there's not really an aura effect for bows and daggers, but that's fine. Don't really need it for this instance. And then when the unit itself, so the Delthea or the Linde, is within 2 spaces of one of those corresponding allies, either Aura having the magic allies or Dark Aura having the melee allies, then they themselves get +5 attack and speed. So that's actually not the worst weapon in the world, but it's also definitely not the best. It kind of wants to be a support weapon, but then it also gives stats to the unit, so it's kind of a little bit of a weird space. What I think that these units need is a skill like Sorcerer's Aura. So this is a C skill, so it's a support-based skill that grants allies within 2 spaces that have an active bonus, +3 to everything, and also the Sorcery Blade effect, the adaptive damage effect of calculates damage using the lower of the foe's defense and res. So there are 2 conditions you have to meet. You have to be within 2 spaces, and you have to have an active bonus. If you have those 2 conditions met, you're getting Spectrum +3 and adaptive damage. That's actually quite good. So I gave Spectrum +3 because it's comparable to Lancina's weapon effect. She also gives Spectrum +3, and it's kind of meant to compete with that. So you either get like the breath effect from Lancina, or you get this adaptive damage from Linde/Delthea. Now, an application of this would be on Aether offense. That's the first thing that pops into your head. I do think, though, that this specific idea of this weapon and the Sorcerer's Aura would work extremely well on something like an Aether defense team that uses Bridal Catria, because Bridal Catria grants the ground orders effect to allies within 2 spaces, and then that's a bonus for them to then abuse Sorcerer's Aura, right? So, back to Aether offense things. So, using her as your support unit, you can see here that I've given her Life and Death 4, so she can soak Chill Attack and Chill Speed, as well as Bright Shrine. She's having a shove with a defense res link. That combined with Dark Aura means that her support unit's getting attack defense res +6 if you position everything just right. Then Sorcerer's Aura is giving her her ally Spectrum +3 as well as Distant Guard. So that's all like really good stuff for her, her support partner, and definitely would make her compete with the likes of units like Male Corin or Lancina or Flame. Like, all these units have strengths and weaknesses, but that would put Linde and Delthea in the running for these spots. Also, the debate between Linde and Delthea, they're pretty much the same unit. Delthea has a little more attack, a little bit less speed. Opposite for Linde, they have a little bit less, Delthea's a little bit more min-max with her defense res, but they're pretty much the same unit at the end of the day, and either one would work fine in this role, and definitely would make them a competitive support unit in the meta. Next up, we're looking at Female Morgan. So, Female Morgan has not the worst stat spread in the world. She's kind of min-max towards res, and as well as having, you know, some attack and speed. Her weapon, actually, her Refine, is actually pretty good. If she meets a res check against her opponent, she gets Spectrum +4. She also has kind of a joint drive attack speed effect in her weapon as the Refine. So those effects are actually quite good. The problem is there's a little bit of an opportunity cost in terms of using a blue mage, like you're missing out on using Reinhardt or Selena, those kind of units. In terms of using a ranged flyer, you're missing out on using a support unit like Flame. In terms of her damage reduction is probably more valuable than the joint drive attack speed. So Female Morgan needs a little bit more of something, not a lot more of something. But I've decided to give her a lot more of something anyway. So the skill I've decided to give her is Tactical Surprise, which is a very simple effect. That is, allies within 2 spaces can move to a space within 2 spaces of unit. Now, it sounds complicated. If you know, though, the effect of things like Young Tana or the effect of Halloween Noe, then you know how this effect works. So it basically grants a large range of movement in a guidance area type effect. So it's like a super guidance. That's what you can think about it as, a super guidance here. It allows a lot more movement across the map. It would enable some interesting traps. You could definitely work with some dancer traps, some rally traps, those kind of things with something like Tactical Surprise. Physic Trap also would be quite good with something like this. But all those ideas are definitely very, very strong. The application of her would be then on something like Aether Raid's defense to set up these kinds of traps. You could use her in a rally trap, or you could just have her set up for your team and, you know, just take damage from Winter Bernadetta, or be debuffed and be a restore trap, those kind of things. Having something like Steady Impact enables her to get a good amount of speed and then boost her defense up to a more reasonable level. Basically, her job is to survive in that instance, and then become either a beacon for your nearby units or a Wings of Mercy beacon. Those are all good options for her. Her job is really to enable movement. It's not so much to be the world's best unit by herself. That said, she has some decent stats to work with, especially when you consider the Spectrum +4 she gets from her weapon if she meets that res check, and the Joint Drive attack speed effect. So really all good things that would enable Morgan to be much, much more of a meta unit, and much, much more of a threat that would enable some interesting compositions and interesting traps on Aether Raid's defense. Next up, we have Nephenee. So Nephenee is actually kind of skewed towards speed and defense, which is kind of an interesting combination. She has workable attack, but then not so great res, and then, you know, HP. That is what it is for a Gen 1 unit. The good thing about her weapon is actually the base effect. So unlike a lot of these units that get pretty good refines, the base effect is kind of trash, Nephenee kind of has the opposite problem, where her base effect is a slaying lance, right? So it has the slaying effect of -1 special, and then the slaying lance effect of effective against armor. She also has the steady stance skill built into her weapon, which is plus speed, defense, and 4 when the foe initiates, so that's not the best effect in terms of refine, but the base effect is so good that it makes up for it in a lot of ways. What Nephenee really needs, though, is something that makes her stand out from these other units, and so what I've decided to give her is Halberdier's, I practiced so hard to say it right, and I didn't say it right, that's fine. Halberdier's Shield. So Halberdier's Shield gives her basically the Creator Sword effect. So if you're familiar with that weapon from Byleth, it gives her that effect, essentially. It gives her, neutralizes special acceleration, special deceleration on her, and then also a null follow-up effect, as well as this Halberdier's Shield is giving her +1 special charge per attack. So it's giving her a breath effect as well. So that's a lot of effects stacked on one skill. It doesn't give her any extra stats or anything, because that would be a little bit too much. But what it does really, really well, especially in combination with slaying and armor effectiveness, is it makes her quite a good arena unit. So with B-Dual Infantry and then a preferred B skill, she scores like a 185 BST unit, which is actually, you know, like incredible. As well as being able to have that armor effectiveness when you encounter a lot of armors in arena, especially something like a Fallen Edelgard, which I know we're really beating that Fallen Edelgard to death as Fadubers, but it's what everyone's talking about right now, and she is the newest meta threat, so we do talk about her a lot. I think beating her in Arena is a little bit more of a challenge than beating her in AR for sure, but this would definitely shut that down in a lot of ways. So the Creator Sword effect stops her special acceleration, stops her follow-up effects, all that kind of stuff. Having Armored Lance as well as a slaying effect as well as special acceleration means that Nephenee can fire back a blue flame right away as soon as she is attacked, or you could run Aether and have her fire off Aether on her second hit. Both those are good options for sure. You run Joint Drive Attack and Attack Defense Bond. Attack Defense Bond especially here for enabling Blue Flame. Those things have synergy because she wants to be by her allies then. But definitely a good skill. The one weakness of Halberdier's Shield is that it is only on the enemy phase, right? So the foe must initiate on her for her to get these effects. So she becomes much, much less of a player phase threat as if she was running, as opposed to if she was running something like Null Follow-Up, just the base Null Follow-Up effect, right? So it has like a give and take for sure, but it makes her a very specific meta counter for the arena against armor units. Next up, we have Tana. So Tana fairly recently got a Resplendent and has some pretty good stats to work with now. So she's got pretty good attack and speed. She's got balanced defenses. So overall, like, her stats are pretty fine. Her weapon effect is also not the worst thing in the world either. It gives her defense and res +7 when a foe initiates on her, kind of like a close defense 4 effect, but without the dull kind of effect that close defense 4 has. It also gives her attack and speed +4 if she's within 2 spaces of an armored or infantry ally, right? So she wants to be near her friends, basically, and she gets this defensive boost. The problem is that she only gets that defensive boost against melee units, so she really, really wants to fight melee units and not really ranged units at all. I mean, you can make her do it with, you know, distant counter and all that kind of stuff, but if she had a skill like Eager Princess, she could focus on fighting just those melee units and do it very, very well all of a sudden. So Eager Princess is essentially a close save skill that gives Spectrum +4, so Spectrum close save, but it only works on infantry and armored allies. So if a melee unit initiates on your flying ally or your cavalry ally, this effect is not going to go off. So those two things, they kind of cooperate with the theme of her weapon. Being near infantry and armored allies is kind of her thing, so she has that savior skill now. Now we all know how good the savior skills are. With a build like this, she'd be very, very good on Aether Raid's offense as a close savior unit. Running something like a range take, like a Brunya, or a Norn, or a young Leon, Fallen Leon, all these units that are really, really strong at range tanking, but maybe don't have the best physical matchups. Norn and Brunya kind of can if you want to, but using a specialized range tank and then running a close defense unit is one of my favorite strategies right now. So that's what I imagine this as. Running her with close defense 7 is really, really strong. Her defense is getting incredibly high. She's getting plus 20 defenses when all is said and done. Well, 24 actually after Eager Princess activating. She also can run something like Guard Bearing in her B slot, where, all these armored units have very good B skills that they can run to be savior units. Things like Crafty Fighter, Vengeful Fighter, Special Fighter. All these are really, really great skills that near save units can use, but having Guard Bearing is also a quite useful skill. So having a savior flying unit is also, viable. Running something like Soul is a good idea to keep her health up. You could also switch out her Close Defense 3 in the Seal for something like Mystic Boost to give her a little bit more consistent defense. She also has very good speed at the end of the day. She'll have 52, 56 speed with this build when everything is activated, plus whatever, support she's getting from her allies, whether that's visible buffs or drives or that kind of stuff. But definitely would become a very threatening save tank. Maybe to run in a save ball, but probably I would think to run in more of a range tank plus a near save unit comp that I think does very well in the meta right now. And that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like the content, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In the description, there's also a link to both the Infantry Pulse Discord as well as my Twitch channel. So tonight on Twitch, I'll actually be streaming Fire Emblem Three Houses, the Crimson Flower Path, if you want to come watch me play some of that. We also stream Aether Raid's offense every day in the Discord, so make sure to come by there if you're looking for more content. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Come back next week for more of these Theorycraft kind of videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Again, thanks so much for watching. Bye.